Hey everyone, it's me again, Gordon Causey, and couldn't sleep tonight, and I've got something rattling around in my brain that I wanted to bring out, that I wanted to do a video on, and it's to deal with it's dealing with Twitter, or what is now called X, although I still prefer the term Twitter, and recent comments that were made during an interview by former Canadian Prime Minister Kim Campbell. I want to start out by saying that I don't use Twitter a lot. I'm not even sure how long I've had my handle. I think probably around 2008. I'm just opening up Twitter right now on my computer, and I don't keep close attention to my Twitter account. I find Twitter to be horrible, to be honest. I am an unapologetic center-right conservative. And if I look at my Twitter handle, okay, let's see. I have 901 individuals that I'm following. I'm followed by 517. I was looking to see if it would tell me, oh yeah, I joined October 2008. But I find when I tweet, it's typically in response to other tweets. But if I was to look at the 901 accounts that I follow, I would imagine that probably 800 of them are like-minded people who are conservative, people who stood up against the COVID nonsense, people who supported the convoy. These are the accounts I follow. And yet when I open my Twitter page, I'm bombarded with liberal messaging. And I'm just going to give you an example. I'm just scrolling down. Here, I've got someone named Andre Ann, who I do not follow, shows up. And it says, just a reminder that sane people won't vote for puffed up Pierre. And then it retweets capture of a headline article. Former PM Campbell calls Pierre Poilievre a liar and a hate monger. And I've seen this repeatedly. And then the next one is the handle is Canada Hates Trump. Again, an account I do not follow. And it says, and I quote, regular viewers will know I'm not big on swearing, but it doesn't bother me that much. Anyway, this is what it shows a video of Trump giving a speech, I assume in Georgia. And the tweet says, I hate this fucking bully with every fiber of my being. His demise cannot come soon enough, and the world will be a much better place when he's finally gone. And then I've got GC Light, some guy this person has he has 1,200 followers, and I can use him because he's one of these morons who tells you his pronouns, and describes himself as woke AF, woke as you know what. And if you need Kim Campbell to tell you Pierre Poilievre is a liar and a hate monger, you haven't been paying attention. This is what I'm bombarded with this stuff. Then I have Benjamin Ryan. I don't know who this idiot is. Oh, I do follow him. Health and science reporter, contributor to the New York Times, NBC News, Guardian, New York Sun. I don't know why I'd follow this, but I do. The full quote, which when truncated changes its meaning, was, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. And I've got Petichor saying, democracy-loving Canadian. Adding me to a list earns an immediate block. Defend the CBC, never vote conservative, vote Ford out. So there's another liberal who shows up on my feed, and they're saying Polyev says he's going to stop sending foreign aid to other countries, in case you're wondering what his position on Ukraine is. And on and on and on. And it just strikes me that within the Twitter sphere, it's almost like they are creating an alternative universe, an alternative reality, one in which Pierre Poilievre and the conservatives are hated. And if someone is going onto Twitter and looking to kind of get a feel for the pulse of where the public mood is, and I'm a conservative and I don't follow any of these accounts, and yet I'm being bombarded with hate-filled messages toward both conservatives and specifically Pierre Poilievre. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. If you want to get a real sense of the political pulse, it showed up on Monday just past, when there was a by-election in Durham riding in Ontario. It was the former riding of Aaron O'Toole, who's the previous leader, previous to Pierre Poilievre, the old leader of the Conservative Party. After he lost that election, he won the popular vote, but he lost. He didn't win enough seats to form the government. He resigned, which meant that his seat, Durham riding, was vacated. And so they had a by-election. That by-election just took place this past Monday. And the conservative candidate in that riding not only won, he destroyed the Liberal, the NDP, the Green, even the PPC. I mean, the Green Party came in last. The PPC got 5% of the vote. The Green Party only got 2%. And the conservative candidate polled over 57%. And Durham riding, I know it. I've been through it many times and traveled around it, so I know geographically. It includes the city of Bowmanville, which, to my mind, that is the most eastern edge of the GTA, because people live in Bowmanville and they work in Toronto. You can catch a GO bus in Bowmanville. It will take you to the Oshawa GO train station, and then you can go into Toronto. And the GO train service, the commuter rail service that feeds into Toronto, they're building a GO station in Bowmanville. I'm not sure what the population is. It's probably 15, 20, maybe 25,000. But once that GO station goes up, it's going to blow up. Just for, I want to know how big a city it is. Ontario. It's about 40,000, 39,371 as of May of 2016, at least according to Google. Sharunian Allegiance, I agree with your comment. Justin Trudeau must resign, or Canadians doomed. Maybe I don't agree with you fully. I think we're a strong, resilient country, and regardless of how horrible and disastrous a prime minister is, I don't think Justin Trudeau is strong enough to completely destroy and doom the country. I will say we'll be a lot better off when he's gone. But anyway, that by-election on Monday, the Liberal candidate got something like 22%, somewhere around there. The margin of victory, the Conservative garnered over 57% of the vote. That's better than the 30% margin of victory over the Liberals. And this is in a riding that is kind of a mixture, because ridings in Canada typically have somewhere in the neighborhood of 125,000 registered voters. That's the kind of a benchmark size for a riding. And this riding called Durham and it's in Durham region, includes Bowmanville to the south, and it stretches up toward Lake Scugog into areas like Port Perry and Caesarea. It's kind of a long, thin riding. It's oriented more north to south. And so you've got a mixture of rural and a mixture of suburbia. So it's not, the Liberals will do well, I would submit, in the urban city centers, in certainly in downtown Toronto. They will poll better. Montreal, they'll do very well. Maybe parts of Edmonton, certainly Vancouver. But to get a sense of where the electorate is at, that Durham election, because it's a mixed bag of rural and suburban, and seeing the Conservatives win with 57, almost 60% of the vote, that's massive. And but going on to Twitter, you could almost be forgiven for thinking that Canadians hate Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, and yet it doesn't line up with the results of a by-election that just took place this week in that Durham riding, where the Conservative candidate, Pierre Poilievre's candidate, garnered darn near 60% of the vote. That doesn't jive. And the last thing I want to talk about is Kim Campbell. Kim Campbell has now, I guess, given an interview or something. I was looking at a screen capture of a newspaper article. And it says, former PM Campbell calls Poilievre a liar and a hate monger. I mean, should anyone give a rat's rosy rear end what Kim Campbell thinks? If anyone forgets, most of the people who watch my channel tend to be older. So I mean, if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, you should remember Kim Campbell was the prime minister after Brian Mulroney. Brian Mulroney became prime minister sometime in the early 80s, and then he won 2 consecutive majority governments. Then he resigned during his second mandate, and they held a leadership convention, and then Kim Campbell inherited the majority government that Brian Mulroney had led, and she remained as prime minister for 3 or 4 months. And then she called an election. And this was her first election, her only election, where she ran as the leader of the Conservative Party. Back then, it was actually called the Progressive Conservative Party. Anyway, what happened in that 1993, I think it was 1993 election? How well did this powerhouse of Canadian politics do? She lost her own seat. And her party, the Progressive Conservative, the old Conservative Party before the merger with the Canadian Alliance, before the Right United, her party won 2 seats. 2 seats. It was the worst performance ever by a political leader of the Liberals, Conservatives, ever. From a majority, from being the leader of a party with the majority of seats in the House of Commons, that's what she inherited from Brian Mulroney. And when she was done running the first election, they were down to 2 seats, and she lost her own seat. She wasn't even a sitting member of parliament anymore. Her party, that had been the governing party in a majority situation, did not even have official party status when she was done with it. And this is the individual that Liberals are foisting onto Canadians as if, listen to this loser who took one of the largest majority governments in history. And I do think Mulroney's second majority was, at least at the time, I think it was the largest majority government in Canadian history. She took the largest majority government in Canadian history and reduced it down to 2 seats. So obviously her opinion means nothing. And yet this is where I caution anyone on Twitter. Do not get the impression, do not think for a second that what you see on Twitter is any reflection in any way, shape, or form of the views and opinions of a majority of Canadians. Most Canadians know the difference between a man and a woman. If you go on Twitter, you'll get the impression that a lot of Canadians, a significant portion of Canadians, don't know what a woman is. Well, reality check. In the real world, Canadians know the difference between a man and a woman. If you go onto Twitter, you'll think that that Canadians are all hyperventilating over climate change, and we can't wait to see the carbon tax go up, and we think that Canada will, save the planet from climate disaster. Most Canadians realize that even with our carbon emissions going down, China keeps bringing on more and more coal-fire plants. For every 100 tons of carbon that we stop emitting, China adds 1,000. Still a net gain of 900. I mean, it's insane. And I think most people are aware of this. Twitter is such a joke because these handles, the individuals promoting this, is one, Andre Ann is quoting or is retweeting something from Paul G. Brandon. At least in the case of Paul G. Brandon, I've got a name. Most people have handles, and you don't even know if they're a real person. For all you know, they could be a Russian bot, they could be artificial intelligence, they could be anything. And they are able to create a digital illusion of reality that isn't reality. This is part of the reason I do these videos, is to give voice and a face and a name to that which I put out in social media. I consider Facebook actually a better platform simply because what you see, what I see on my feed, isn't random bullshit from what in all likelihood is a lot of bot generated content. I see people I often know, people I went to school with, people I've worked with, people who've been neighbors, extended family, things like that. I actually can put it, I know these individuals a lot on Facebook, though I don't. There are people who I have friended with who, because we were like-minded on all the COVID crap. I've got laser distance meter saying since Musk took over, it's much better in Europe. Maybe it is better in Europe. In Canada, at least my experience is that I'm inundated with liberal nonsense, individuals who have to tell me what their pronouns are. I don't need to be told. Show me a picture. 99 times out of 100, I can figure it out. You don't have to tell me he, him. I know there are two pronouns. Men are he, women are she, and there is nothing else. So get lost with all the other garbage. Sharunian Allegiance says, I don't trust politicians. They're liars and deceivers. And that's a fair comment in of itself. I mean, show me a truthful politician. Show me a politician who hasn't lied. You can characterize any politician of any stripe as having lied, as having been deceptive. Trudeau has lied to us so many times, and it's documented and it's provable. He's also violated ethics codes so many times I've lost count. The worst one in my books was when he fired the attorney general because she wouldn't give a sweetheart deal to his corporate buddies with SNC Lavalin. And the attorney general, Jody Wilson-Raybould, wouldn't play ball with the prime minister's office. So Trudeau shit-canned her. And that was just horrible. But anyway, that was just on my mind, and I probably wouldn't be able to get to sleep until I put it out there that there's such a disconnect between what I see on Twitter and then you see the actual poll results or the actual election results from this Monday by-election in Durham region, where the Conservative candidate polls damn near 60%. The Liberals barely managed 21, 22%. And that is beyond massive. And what I would love to see, I want to see Trudeau gone. But the only thing that would affect it is if his own caucus, basically they'll have to revolt against him. So I'm just going to read what Sharunian said. Been to Alabama, like it much better than Canada any day. Not as racist as people say. I've never been to Alabama. The furthest south I've been really in the last 20 years and last 10 years would be Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. I did notice when I was down there, I did notice racism. But anyway, I've got laser distance meter saying all that woke garbage is shoved down our throats in TV. Twitter here, Austria, Germany, is actually a welcome counterpart to the governmentally controlled mass media. So sprechen English sehr gut, meine Freunde. My German is kleine bisschen, just very, very little. Bitte schön. Anyway, ich spreche Französisch, nicht Deutsch. Anyway, that's my short little video. I just needed to get that out there. I mean, danke schön. I would like to learn to speak more than just English and French, but my French is starting to go down, and I feel like if I start to take on another language, that I'll push my French out. And laser distance meter says that my German is not too bad. Is auch nicht schlecht. And Sharunian says, Gordon feedback, use microphone and better camera other than that great video. Part of what I think makes this miserable, pathetic channel of mine, partly I think what serves as a bit of an attraction to it, is the fact that it isn't all dressed up. It isn't. The low production values actually, I think, help, because I think it speaks to a genuineness, to an authenticity, and not to something that's manufactured. I've thought about getting a proper camera and setting up some proper lighting, and maybe even I have a spare room, an empty room, where I could almost make it like studio-like. But then I'm like, then it becomes something other than what I am. I begin to become a caricature as opposed to a real human being. Those are just my thoughts. Thoughts evolve. I'm toying with it. Anyway, God bless. Thank you for watching. I can't believe people jumped on. It's 3:30 in the morning. I am working tomorrow. I go into work at noon. So we'll talk to you again. Sharunian Laser Distance Center. Danke schön. Thank you for watching. And Auf Wiedersehen. Good night.